What's gaming gamers? Welcome to a new video from me, yeah boy, Volatile Toast. We are going to be looking at 32 heat on Hades and how to beat it. Today we'll be using the twin fists. The build I'll be showing you is based around the twin fists, dodge percent chance, and hoping to get good boons from the Daedalus Hammer, as well as being greedy, aggressive, taking too many hits, and not being perfect at the game, which I think is one of the best ways to portray this win, because anyone can do it. It just looks a bit more intimidating than it actually is. So to get started, we'll have a look at the Mirror of Night, where we're running Shadow Presence, Dark Regeneration, Death Defiance, Greater Reflex, Abyssal Blood, Infernal Soul, Deep Pockets, Thick Skin, Family Favourite, Dark Foresight, God's Pride, and Fated Persuasion. As you can see here, I've not played on this account much. I owned the game on Game Pass, got to a 32 heat win previously, and then kind of stopped playing for a little while. With the announcement of Hades 2, it kind of sent me back into a bit of a Hades binge, and this is where we are at. So we haven't quite maxed out the account yet in terms of darkness and having access to everything on the Mirror of Night, but we are far enough along that we have successfully got that 32 heat run on this account. So without going on for too long, I'll quickly run through why I've chosen these boons so that you can understand why I've chosen these boons. It's amazing, isn't it? Shadow Presence we're running because at the end of the day, when you compare it to Fiery Presence, you can always hit something from behind. You can only hit something that is undamaged once. So by running the damage from behind, it just gives us a higher flat DPS in my opinion. Feel free to let me know if that's not correct, but in reality, especially when you're dealing with bosses and the such like, you'll get way more value out of Shadow Presence than you will Fiery Presence. Dark Regeneration, Death Defiance, and Greater Reflex, I don't think they need too much explanation. I think you could take Chthonic Vitality instead. I prefer Dark Regeneration because it gives a purpose to a chamber reward that maybe wouldn't actually be that useful if you weren't running it. Death Defiance, we're going to be dying a lot. We probably will die a lot. We might not even finish the run if we don't bump into Patroclus. So Death Defiances are a must. Greater Reflex, more dash, more iframes. It's that straightforward as far as I'm concerned. I do like Ruthless Reflex in some builds. I especially like it when I can use it with the Gilgamesh fists because you already get the extra dashes, but Greater Reflex for this run especially. Next up, the two probably most interesting traits I think on this tree are Abyssal Blood and Infernal Soul. Now, for these we are giving up faster gemstone recollection. I'm not actually sure what the name of the gemstones are, so feel free to let me know in the comments. I just normally say red gem, and that's what I've stuck with for the last sort of year of playing Hades and will probably stick with. And we're also giving up the ability to do more damage to things with the gem lodged in them. And the reason that we're doing this is because in our Pact of Punishment, we are running more move speed and more damage on our enemies. So having something that can mitigate those, especially when you're dealing with these big single target fights, like the boss fights themselves, just takes the edge off of how hard it can be. Infernal Soul, we're doing it because actually having more casts is always nice, not to mention if you've got to fight maybe even Theseus and Asterius, you can do it to both of them. You can lodge a gem in both of them, and then neither of them are doing what they could be doing, which is max speed, max damage, mega giga awful boss fights. Deep Pockets and Thick Skin are particularly uninteresting, I think. You're not going to be rich, so Golden Touch probably isn't going to net you that much money. I don't really recall going through regions with that much gold. That could be taken. Pay attention to your own gold and how much you go through with, but me personally, I'm a spender. I spend. At the last Charon shop before the boss fight, I buy everything. I buy whatever I can. I'm just looking to make my life easier, and High Confidence versus Thick Skin feels like a no-brainer to me because of the way that we're playing. We're not going to be high HP, so take the free stats that come without consequence and without challenge or any sort of hoop you have to jump through. Just take the free stats. We're already going to be running on reduced healing and everything when it comes to the Pact of Punishment, so we might as well take the health while it's free. Next up we have Family Favourite, which I think could be controversial, I suppose, because I am of the opinion that privilege status is probably better. Privileged Zagreus gives you 20% damage when you have a foe affected by at least 2 status curse effects, which is a lot of damage, especially when it comes to these single target boss fights what I was just talking about. But Family Favorite gives you flat increase in damage based on the number of different gods that you have a boon with. Now, we are going to be beggars, not choosers. We have to purge 1 boon, we have to purge 3 boons throughout the whole run, 1 boon at the end of every region, and we have to take boons based on a list of 2, not 3, every time it's offered. So, you know, we can always end up with bad boons, we can end up with odd boons, weird boons, but what we can get is 5% extra damage every time we take a boon from a god that we haven't already encountered. I'll do the last 3 fairly quickly, but Dark Foresight I nearly always take over Olympian Favor. I don't really care about rare boons. What I do care about is the opportunity to get more gold, more god boons, and more Daedalus hammers. God's Pride, in a similar vein, we're going for function over style. We don't really care about getting Demeter and Athena's duo boon. What we care about is having a epic level Ares dash or an epic level Poseidon dash, something that is going to immediately impact and just get gritty and do a load of work for us. Last but not least, I like to take Fated Persuasion over Authority because instead of changing chamber rewards, I prefer the ability to reroll the actual offerings from the gods, and especially given that this allows you to reroll the purging pool, this one can come in clutch and save your run. So next up, guys, we'll be looking at the Keepsake and Companion. My personal preference for this run and this build is that you take the Lambent Plume from Hermes, 1.2% dodge chance and move speed each time you quickly clear an encounter, and it is not hard to quickly clear an encounter when you're running the fists, when you're dash light attacking everywhere, when you've got the Ares displayed running, when you've got all of this grit behind you. Clearing rounds easily is not the end of the world. It can be quick, you can be quick. It doesn't take more than sort of button mashing really and just trying to stay behind whatever it is you're hitting. As far as the Companion's concerned, I'm a big advocate for Companion Batty. I think Meg's Companion is fantastic. This is your get out of jail free card. Do not be afraid to use it. I see a lot of people use these on sparingly. I only use them on bosses, I use them on this, I use them on that. If you're in a pinch, if you're in a room against the Medusa head and the dropping stone boss fight and they're both armored and they're both scary, drop the Meg power, drop the Companion Batty. You will not regret it. You get 5 uses of this thing, and as far as I'm aware, you can't even use it against Hades, so there's no point having extra uses at the end. Use your resources. Even if you get to a point where you think, damn, I really wish I had it, at least you've used it instead of finishing a run without using it. This thing, high damage, good area of effect. The last piece of advice I have for the Companion Batty is think about when you're going to use it. It's so important. You know, we've all been in that boss fight against Hades when you use your Artemis call and then Hades goes invisible and you lose all of that damage and you go, I can't believe I've done that. That's a whole phase that I've lost, and it happens to everyone on everything. There are so many enemies, there's so many patterns that take them halfway across the map or just an inch out of the way. Just make sure that they're locked in place before you use it so that it's not a waste. Okay guys, now onto the aspect that we're going to be using. Aspect of Zagreus, 15% dodge chance. Now, I can't stress how great 15% dodge chance is to start with, and then I can't stress how great it is that after just over 10 chambers, at the effective clear time, your Lambent Plume will give you another 15%, which is 30%. That is insane. That's almost a third of hits will get registered as a dodge instead. Not to mention, you can also pick up Hermes' Boon, which gives you even more % chance to dodge. You know, I've seen people stack this thing up to crazy levels, but when you're running at max heat like this, at 32 heat like this, you will say to yourself, thank God that I have the dodge chance, because you know, Hades clipped me, that would have been a death defy, he's only on phase 1, it just takes the pressure off a little bit. Again, we're looking for function over style. We don't have to play flawlessly. What we do have to do is get our damage out and get it out fast enough that we can win this damn thing. Now we come to the Pact of Punishment, and this is what I would recommend you take. I think that this offers the best balance of difficulty versus straightforward counters from things you can do yourself to make your life easier. So, for example, we've got hard labor at 60%, but our gems and our abyssal blood will counter some of this damage as long as we use our gems effectively. We've got to throw those bad boys into stuff and get through it as quickly as possible. We will be dodging things like jury summons and Kalanetics program and damage control because of one reason in particular. We are running 5 minutes on the tight deadline, and I know what you're thinking. Jesus, that is not a lot of time. But trust me, when you get stuck into it, it's not as bad as it feels, because we're going to be hitting things from behind. We're going to be smashing our attack button. We're going to be charging head on into everything to try and get as many plume stacks as we can. So everything that we've worked towards in our kind of build process leads to the idea that we're going to do one thing: move fast, attack fast, clear fast, progress fast. Everything is going to come to a head, and the only real scary things on this list is that we have to purge a boon, which we've already discussed in the Mirror of Night, and we will also be at threat of the extreme measures. Now, I'm of an opinion that extreme measures isn't the end of the world. I actually believe that the Theseus and Asterius boss fight can be easier when you are fighting them on this Pact of Punishment level. They do offer a different challenge, but the challenge that they offer often involves the fact that you can just hold Asterius in the center of the ring, and if you keep him in combat long enough, he doesn't always seem to use that deathly spin attack that can waste so much time. The only other thing on this list that I would say is of note is the convenience fee, which can be crippling. That means 360 gold coins for a Death Defiance. So we're going to be looking for them from other places. Now, you can get them from Chaos, you can get them from Athena, and you can get them from Patroclus. And the best one by far is Patroclus. So just very quickly, I'll run through. We've got hard labor on 60%, lasting consequences on minus 25%, convenience fee on 80%, jury summons on 0%. Remember, we're looking for speed. We don't need more enemies. Extreme measures on 3, Kalanetics program on 0%, benefits package with 2, middle management and underworld customs both checked. Forced overtime at 20%, heightened security off, routine inspection off, damage control off, approval process on, and tight deadline 5 minutes. Having it on 5 minutes gives us a whopping 6 heat, which is why it's so important that this build is focused around being fast, because that is the easiest way to get some free heat. Okay guys, what I'm going to do now is quickly run through the different gods, boons roughly. This won't be in too much detail, but just so you've got an idea of what to look out for when you are going through these runs. So starting off with Poseidon, I honestly don't see much value in Poseidon for this run, with the exception of the tidal dash being very useful in the Satyr tunnels. Essentially, all of Poseidon's kit is extremely safe and pushing things away. You don't want to push things away because it makes it harder to hit them, and when it's harder to hit them, then your runs are going to take longer and you're going to have a bad time. But having said that, Tidal Dash combined with Break and Wave and Razor Shoals, definitely good candidates to make sure that you have got some boons to get rid of at the Pool of Purging, good candidates to make sure that when you get to the Satyr tunnels, you can really breeze through them if you've got anything to do with slamming enemies against the wall with the Tidal Dash. The Breaking Wave, the Tidal Dash together, they are very, very, very powerful. Okay, next up we've got Athena. Athena's a bit of a tricky one because I think she is very strong, but she doesn't offer you as much offense as she could. I really like picking up boons that are kind of miscellaneous for Athena in the hopes that I can also get rid of them. Not to mention that she is one of the very few areas of the game where you can restore a Death Defiance, so that cannot be understated. If you are Death Defiance down and you see Athena, don't be afraid to grab one, because in this run, we're going to need them, and there's no shame in that. Also, Bronze Skin to reduce damage from foes. Holy Shield is really nice to stop yourself from getting snowballed on from damage over time effects or anything of the like. A great example is when you're fighting Tisiphone and she pounds a million orbs into you at the same time when she's spinning them around. You don't have a deflect, you're going in, going in to do damage, well, Holy Shield stops that. You basically briefly deflect after taking damage and it gives you a little bit of invulnerability. I'll never not recommend the dash on Athena. I think it's probably just one of the best dashes in the game. When you can get your timings right against Lernie and stuff like that, you can return an immense amount of damage back to him without having to worry. And I have put the attack on there as well. You're going to be dashing and attacking 100% of the time, so you may as well have deflect on them because it sort of lends towards your immunity. Moving on to Aphrodite, I think that Aphrodite is a very strong candidate. I really like the call. The legendary, which you're probably not that likely to get, is very potent. Your weak effects also have a 15% chance to charm foes. This can be really useful when you're looking down the barrel of a boss and it just blink, gives them 1 second, breaks their attack, breaks their chain, gives you another way to live, as well as her damage reduction and the fact that she can apply weak to everything. I think that she does give good value boons. She's not one to hang your hat on, but you'll never be too sad if you pick any of these ones up in particular. Moving on down the list, probably one of my more favoured gods for this run is Artemis. Now, I like Artemis a lot because you can get Hunter Dash and Deadly Strike, and suddenly your Dash Strike is dealing a lot more damage and your attacks are dealing more damage with the potential to crit. I think that her call is extremely powerful for bursting down enemy bosses. The fact that critical effects can also deal damage to armor with the Boon Hide Breaker. And then one of my favorites, because it just allows you to chip. If you can chip away at things, support fire after you cast or hit with an attack or special, fire a Seeking Arrow. It's not immense damage, but it is good to always keep chipping down on everything. I think Artemis is a very high power ranking for me on this level heat. Moving on to Ares, I think Ares is one of the most underrated gods in the game. I think that his Disc Blade, his Blade Rift abilities are immense, especially if you can get the one on the dash, because with this build you're going to be dashing on everything's head all the time. And then Urge to Kill is always a great one to pick up, and one that you're never too sad to lose at the Pool of Purging as well. So for Ares, look for cast and dashes that give you the Blade Rifts. Look for Urge to Kill. Dionysus next, the god of drink and wine and partying and all those good things. Well, actually, what he offers us in this environment is health. Gain health when you pick up a nectar, receive a nectar, boom, that's maximum HP in the bag. If you're low after an encounter, restore to the threshold, boom, that's another health gain. Using a fountain gives you bonus damage and restores most of your HP. Remember, we're running lasting consequences, so it's not 100%. And then positive outlook for reduced damage while you're at 40% health or below. These are all great boons to have, but I wouldn't go into a room over probably many of the gods for Dionysus. It's just that if you do get him, he does have some pretty good utility spells, again, that you probably don't mind losing to the Pool of Purging. Hermes for this run is the main man in Olympus. He is the one with all the boons that you want. The only thing that you would sacrifice a Hermes room for is a Daedalus Hammer, because it's less common and there are some really good upgrades that you want to grab as an almost must on this run. But if you're dashing, that's iframes, attacks, that's faster attack speed, that's more damage, that's faster clearing, moving faster, running faster, faster clearing. Getting the sturdy bonuses or quick recovery can also be really good. And then after using a call, gain dodge dance, so you can sort of see where this is going, because Greater Evasion is the OG one that you want to pick up, because you're looking at a minimum of an extra 10% dodge chance. Now picture the scene, you have Greater Evasion and Second Wind and the Lambent Plume and the Fist of Zagreus. You're looking at some crazy dodge percent chance, and you're looking at Hades in the face and you're saying, you're not even on extreme measures, come at me. Demeter's an extremely interesting one, because I went into it thinking, yeah, Demeter's probably not that great, but actually Demeter offers a fair bit of utility and interesting things. I actually have come to really value Demeter's aid, the cool that grows the vortex and creates a chill duration. I think that chill is a very effective ability, especially when things are moving faster than they normally do. When all foes are chilled, make them slow in decay. That's another fantastic one on killing freeze. And these are all boons as well that I wouldn't feel too bad about purging if push came to shove. So essentially, I think that Demeter is okay to grab. I think, again, choosing Hermes above it, choosing Artemis above it, probably even Ares and Athena above Demeter as well. You know, she's a very viable option who gives very solid boons. Not the best, not the worst, but still effective. With Chaos, one of the things that scares a lot of people is that every boon comes with an anti-boon. It comes with a debuff, comes with a threat, a scary, scary thing that might end your run. We're going to visit Chaos every single time we can, because what he gives us in return, especially your dash strike deals 42% more damage, your attack deals 31% more damage. These two things are so good for what we're doing. We are mashing, Xbox controller by the way, we are mashing our A key and our X key, and we are not pressing anything else apart from intermittent use of our B key and our triggers and bumpers. That is literally it. We are just going ham on that X key and the A key. We are dashing and we are attacking. If you see Chaos, jump in his little ship, go to his little villa, ask him for some cash, and then bounce. Don't worry about the debuff. Try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What's the worst that could happen? You have to restart your run. It's no big deal. Last but not least, Daedalus Hammer. Now, the Daedalus Hammer has a couple of abilities that you are going to want. You are going to want one or two of these four as a staple in every run. In particular, I really favour your dash strike pierces foes and deals 900% damage to armor. You are going to be facing so much armor that this thing pays for itself 200 times over. And armor can be a real pain, because when you're punching things that are armored, they're not getting staggered, they're still trying to punch back. They're not responding in the way that enemies do respond when you are normally hitting them. Not to mention, if you can get the extra attack range, it means that you're not having to close the gap as hard. You're a little bit safer when you are punching the living crap out of things. If you can't get that while using your attack, you are sturdy, even better. Not getting interrupted mid-sequence so that you can carry on pounding the living life out of everything. The Daedalus Hammer has to be your number one thing to go and visit every run. As for the core gameplay of this build and the way that you want to play the game, I have uploaded my most recent 32 heat win with this build that I completed while streaming on twitch.tv/volatile-toast. Shameless plug, come and hang out if you fancy, and have a look at that, see what I do. You can see that it is fairly mindless. I mean, you just button mash and hope that you get through it okay. I'm not really someone that likes to be slow and methodical. I like to get stuck in and crack skulls, so you'll notice that that is essentially the way that this build plays, because it plays to my strengths, and my strengths are quicker reaction speed and likes to think less about the finer technical things of what's going on the screen. In the meantime, just a couple of closing tips for you. Always take the hammer, because the Daedalus Hammer is so good. Always be dash light attacking. Speed is of the essence. Get your plumes stacked and get through with plenty of time so that when you get to the Satyr tunnels, Hades isn't a big problem for you. And then if at first you don't succeed, just run it back. It doesn't matter. We'll lose on this all the time. I'm going to lose on this a million times trying to use the spear and trying to use the shield. I already know I'm going to struggle to get 32 heat wins on those. But ultimately, get there at your own pace. And when you do, you'll get that big dopamine hit, because you will have succeeded on the difficulty that a lot of people haven't done yet. That's all from me, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe, follow the channel on Twitch and all the rest of it. If you didn't like what you saw, I'd love to hear why. Please let me know. Constructive criticism, always welcome. Hopefully I can kick out some more videos like this in the future. If not, maybe not, who knows? In the meantime, stay toasty, look after each other, and mwah, peace out.